Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want you to just close your eyes for a second.
Always a risky start, but okay.
Trust me on this.
Mm-hmm.
So close your eyes and imagine you're walking down the street in London. To your left, you have this massive Victorian warehouse. Exposed brick, those big criddle windows, and the air smells like roasting coffee and maybe a faint hint of aerosol paint from some fresh street art.
Sounds very specific.
Right. But then to your right, you have a glass and steel monolith that looks like it just dropped in the year 2050. And the pavement is absolutely packed with people who look like they stepped out of a fashion magazine, but they're walking around talking about, Series B funding and API integrations and retention metrics.
Which means we are, of course, talking about Shoreditch.
Exactly. But not just the old hipster Shoreditch. We are zooming in on Shoreditch in March 2026.
March 2026. And the reason we're focusing on this exact postcode E1 is because there's something genuinely bizarre happening in the data right now.
It's completely counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at the macroeconomy and rent prices across London are volatile. Companies are still, they're still trying to figure out the long-term reality of hybrid work.
Right. Everyone's arguing about how many days in the office is the right number.
Exactly. But in Shoreditch, the vacancy rates are absolutely plummeting, and the prices they're just eye-watering.
It's a paradox. You would naturally expect that with the massive rise of remote work, these really expensive central locations would suffer the most. People would flee to the suburbs.
Yeah, why pay city rent if you're on Zoom?
Precisely. But Shoreditch has done the exact opposite. It has completely matured from that scrappy Silicon Roundabout vibe we saw back in 2010.
Yeah, when it was just a bunch of cheap desks and beanbag chairs.
Exactly. Now it's what the industry officially calls a Tier 1 global cluster.
So that's the mystery we're trying to solve for you today. If I'm a founder or, say, a CFO of a foreign company and I'm landing in the UK, why on earth am I paying the Shoreditch Premium?
Right. Why not just set up in a business park in Reading?
Or why not stay entirely remote? We want to know if this is just pure hype or if there's actually a solid business case, like a real calculator somewhere, that makes this math work.
That is the million-pound question. And to answer it, we've pulled a massive stack of source material for this deep dive.
We've got a lot of data today.
We do. We're looking at the Q1 2026 rental guides from major players like Runway East, Hubble, and Canvas offices.
Plus the government's business rate revaluation reports for the 26-27 tax year.
Which are brutal, by the way. And we also have recent transport data that perfectly illustrates why this specific patch of dirt in East London is suddenly the absolute most connected place in the city.
So our mission here is to evaluate Shoreditch as a workspace destination through three distinct lenses. We're going to look at cost, transportation, and practicality.
But I think we should actually start with the soft stuff.
The vibe.
Yeah, the vibe, because that's where the biggest misunderstanding usually lies. People think Shoreditch is just about being cool, being near the graffiti and the 5-pound oat milk lattes.
It's really easy to be dismissive of the cool factor. But going through these 2026 reports, cool is literally being treated as a hard economic metric.
It absolutely is. And there's a term we came across in the research that I think frames this entire argument perfectly.
Oh, the will gap.
The will gap.
I circled this in my notes like 3 times because it sounds like a psychological thriller.
It does.
Break this down for us, because we all know about the skills gap, right? Like, I can't find a senior Python developer.
Yeah.
What exactly is the will gap?
So for the last decade, HR departments have been fighting that skills gap. But now, post-pandemic, the primary friction point for an employer isn't just finding someone who can do the job.
It's getting them to actually show up.
Exactly. It's getting people who will come to the physical place where the job happens.
For friction of the commute. It's the whole, my sofa is significantly more comfortable than your office chair problem.
Precisely. The baseline expectation for coming into the office fundamentally changed. And this is exactly where the architecture and the geography of Shoreditch become a literal business tool.
Because if you're in some sterile corporate park...
With the suspended ceilings?
Yes, the suspended ceilings, the flickering fluorescent lights, the gray carpet aesthetic. If you're there, you have to actively pay people a premium just to tolerate that environment.
You're essentially bribing them to endure the commute and the boredom.
Because nobody wakes up on a rainy Tuesday and thinks, God, I really can't wait to sit under a fluorescent tube for 8 hours.
Nobody. But what Shoreditch offers, and the reports call this lifestyle integration, is completely different. It sounds like a marketing buzzword, but think about the 15-minute city urban planning concept.
Where everything you need is within a 15-minute walk.
Right. In Shoreditch, the office isn't an isolated island. It's deeply woven into a fabric of leisure and lifestyle.
You walk out the door, and you've got Box Park right there for lunch.
You have Shoreditch House for evening networking,
Independent coffee shops everywhere. Potter and Reed, Dishoom for breakfast.
and wellness is right next door. You've got gyms like One Rebel or Barry's Boot Camp. Shoreditch Park is right there.
So the core argument the sources are making is basically you pay a much higher rent for the Shoreditch building, so you don't have to fight a daily war to get your employees to show up.
That is the exact ROI calculation. You are outsourcing your company culture to the neighborhood itself.
That's a fascinating way to look at it, outsourcing culture to the postcode.
Because if the neighborhood is naturally magnetic, retention rates go up. People don't want to leave the job because they don't want to leave the lifestyle. And in a global talent war, retention is always cheaper than constant recruitment.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second,
Okay.
because I like a good flat white as much as anyone. But does proximity to a cool coffee shop actually drive hard business results? Or is it just a nice-to-have perk?
It definitely drives results, and the data backs this up through what they call the cluster effect.
The cluster effect. Let's define that.
By 2026, Shoreditch isn't just a quirky place with cafes. It is a highly dense, global, creative digital cluster. When your office is there, you are physically surrounded by high-growth startups, SaaS companies, fintech unicorns, top-tier creative agencies.
It's like the water cooler effect, but scaled up to an entire neighborhood.
Precisely. There's this economic concept of knowledge spillover. In these dense clusters, ideas just travel faster. You literally bump into a competitor while waiting for a table at lunch.
Or you meet a potential VC partner at the gym.
Exactly. That kind of serendipity absolutely does not happen in a business park out in the suburbs.
And it definitely doesn't happen on a scheduled Zoom call.
No, it has to be organic. So you're paying for the probability of a lucky collision.
Okay, I get that. You're paying for access to the network. And there's also this cultural shift that the sources talk about, the complete rejection of the traditional corporate aesthetic.
Yes, the anti-cubicle movement.
Shoreditch offers character. You've got the original wooden floors, the industrial heritage, and the argument is that this aesthetic acts as a magnet. It signals to top talent, hey, we aren't just cogs in a machine here, we're creators.
It respects their identity. So
Yeah.
the why of Shoreditch is really just about solving that will gap. You set up shop there because it's literally the only place your staff actually want to be.
Okay, I buy the culture argument. If I'm 25 and I want to be in the mix, I want to be in Shoreditch. But let's be super practical here. Say I'm 40, I live out in Zone 4, I've got kids. Getting to Shoreditch historically used to be a complete nightmare.
The Northern Line misery.
Yeah, the Northern Line misery or nothing. You were just trapped underground forever.
That reputation is totally outdated now. The 2026 transport data shows a complete transformation in connectivity. We have to talk about the golden triangle of stations.
Which sounds a bit like a Bermuda Triangle situation,
Yeah.
but hopefully with fewer disappearances.
Hopefully less disappearing and more arriving on time. So the 3 points of this triangle are Old Street, Shoreditch High Street, and Liverpool Street.
Let's start with Old Street, because historically Old Street Station was a bit of a dungeon.
It was a maze. But the massive renovations have completely changed the flow above and below ground. And the key metric for Old Street is speed to the city. You are literally a 3-minute tube ride to bank.
3 minutes. That is essential if you're, say, a fintech startup.
Absolutely. You can be writing code in your hoodie in Shoreditch, get a call, hop on the Northern Line, and be pitching to a major bank in a tailored suit 10 minutes later. It's the gateway.
Okay, so that's the heavy rail connectivity to the city and up to King's Cross. What about the second point of the triangle?
Shoreditch High Street on the overground. The reports call this the prestige anchor.
Why prestige?
Because it connects you north to Highbury and Islington and south down to Whitechapel. It essentially acts as a funnel, feeding all the creative talent from the cooler, heavily residential neighborhoods directly into the office.
It brings in the talent pool without making them go through central London.
Exactly. But the third point of the triangle is the real heavy lifter, Liverpool Street. And we honestly cannot overstate the impact of the Elizabeth line here.
The Lizzie line. It obviously opened a few years back, but the sources emphasize that we are just now seeing the fully mature economic effects of it in 2026.
Correct. Think about how it used to be. Before the Elizabeth line, if you had your headquarters in Shoreditch and an important client was flying in from New York to Heathrow.
That transfer was agonizing.
Mhm.
You're looking at an hour and a half in a cab sitting in traffic or dragging a suitcase through 3 different tube changes.
Exactly. Now, in 2026, you can get from Heathrow Terminal 5 to a desk on Bishopsgate in roughly 45 minutes,
In air-conditioned silence.
which is a premium luxury commodity in London transport.
It really is.
Mm.
And that level of accessibility has completely shrunk the map of the city.
It means that a developer living way out in West London, like Ealing or Paddington, who previously would never have even applied for a job in Shoreditch because the commute was unmanageable.
They're suddenly in the hiring pool.
The catchment area for talent effectively doubled overnight when that line opened.
So if you're a global foreign company landing in London, that Heathrow connection is non-negotiable.
It's a total game changer. The experts in the reports call it the Elizabeth line effect. It has violently disrupted property value propositions across all of East London. It turned Shoreditch into a global connectivity powerhouse.
Okay, so the train links are elite.
Mm.
But I keep seeing this term in the Hubble and Canvas rental guides, the tech belt. Is that just a fancy marketing way of saying the bit of pavement between the station and the pub?
It used to be, but it's actually a defined, highly valuable geographic zone now. The physical boundary between the formal City of London, the guys in the pinstripe suits, and Shoreditch, the guys in the hoodies, has completely blurred.
Because it's actually a really short walk.
Right. That 12 to 15-minute walk heading north from Liverpool Street Station into Shoreditch is the tech belt. And what's really interesting in the 2026 data is the walkability and cycling scores.
Because once you get off that beautiful air-conditioned train, you still have to physically get to your desk.
Right. And this brings us to a massive demographic shift: the cyclist commuter. The latest numbers show that 71% of office buildings in Shoreditch now feature dedicated bike storage and on-site showers.
71%. That seems incredibly high for retrofitted Victorian buildings.
It's high, but it's a strict market requirement now. If you're a commercial landlord in 2026 and you don't have end-of-ship facilities, we're talking showers, secure lockers, drying rooms for wet gear.
You can't lease the space.
You simply cannot classify it as grade A space. You become practically invisible to the modern tech workforce.
That makes sense, because if I cycle 45 minutes from Hackney in the rain, I am absolutely not sitting in a morning pitch meeting without a shower.
No one wants you in that meeting without a shower either. The eco-friendly commuter just isn't a niche, quirky demographic anymore. It is the majority.
So the transportation problem is completely solved. You can get there easily, by train, by plane, or by bike.
It's frictionless.
All right, we've covered the fun lifestyle stuff and the commute. Now we have to eat our vegetables.
Financials.
We need to talk about the money. And looking at these spreadsheets from the Q1 reports, these vegetables are very, very expensive.
They are. Let's get the headline numbers out of the way first. If you want a service desk in Shoreditch right now in March 2026.
And service means you just walk in, open your laptop, the internet is blazing fast, the coffee is hot, and you just pay one single monthly bill.
Exactly. For that, you are looking at an average of between £525 and £625 per desk per month.
Okay, let's just pause on that. £625 a month just for a desk. That is £7,500 a year to seat one single employee. If I have a modest team of 20 people, that's £150,000 a year before I've even thought about paying a single salary.
It's a big number.
That feels incredibly aggressive for East London.
It is aggressive. And remember, that is just the average tier. If you want what they classify as premium or trophy space, we're talking panoramic views of the Gherkin hotel-style concierge at the door, you are looking at £1,500 plus per month per desk.
£1,500 a month. You could rent a decent flat in a lot of cities for that.
You definitely could, but context is everything. Let's compare that Shoreditch Premium to the West End.
Okay.
If you look at Mayfair or St. James's, traditional lease costs are sitting at roughly £130 to £182 per square foot, whereas in Shoreditch, a top-tier grade A lease is around 75 halves to £82.50 per square foot.
Wait, hold on. I'm looking at that right now. £75 per square foot for lease. That sounds dramatically cheaper than the £625 a month service desk rate. Let me do the math. If a standard desk requires, what, about 50 square feet of space?
Roughly, yes.
Then a traditional lease should be way, way less than £600 a month per person. Why wouldn't everyone just sign a lease?
And this is the classic trap that catches so many foreign companies. The reports call this the total occupancy cost fallacy.
The hidden fees.
Yes. Let's break down that 75 tab per square foot lease. It looks like a bargain on paper, but you are completely forgetting the shadow costs.
Walk me through the shadows. What am I missing?
First and foremost, business rates. In the UK, this is the tax you pay to the local council on commercial property. In this new 2026-27 government reevaluation, Shoreditch business rates are officially forecast to jump by a staggering 16%.
16%. That is a massive overnight hike.
It's huge. The government has clearly realized how valuable this tech land is, and they want their cut. Now, compare that to Aldgate, literally just down the road, which is only seeing a 5% increase.
So on top of your 75 pounds rent, you're suddenly adding a punishing tax bill.
Exactly. Then you have service charges. That covers maintaining the elevators, keeping the lobby clean, paying the security staff. That adds another £10 to £50 per square foot.
Okay, so my 75 bargain is already looking more like £100 per square foot.
Keep going. You have utilities. Heating, electricity, daily office cleaning, that's another £15 to £25 per square foot. And then we hit the really big one, CapEx, or capital expenditure.
Because when you sign a traditional lease, you don't get a finished office.
Right. You get a concrete shell. It's empty. You have to pay out of pocket to build the glass meeting rooms, install the kitchen, run all the fiber cabling, put down the flooring.
Fit out.
The fit out. And a decent quality fit out in London in 2026 costs between £100 and £120 per square foot, paid entirely upfront. So if you take a standard 2,000 square foot office, you need to find maybe £200,000 in cash before you can even move your desks in.
Wow. Okay, suddenly that $625 monthly fee for the serviced office, where someone else already bought the espresso machine and paid for the carpets, that doesn't look so crazy anymore.
It looks very smart. That's what the industry calls the asset-light model. You keep your cash. And there is one more hidden cost with traditional leases that almost everyone forgets until it's too late. Dilapidations.
Dilapidations. That sounds like a disease from a Dickens novel.
It basically is, but for your balance sheet. It means that at the very end of your 5-year lease, you are legally obligated to pay to rip everything out. All those meeting rooms you built. You have to destroy them and return the office to the exact concrete shell you found it in.
Wait, really?
Huh.
You pay to put it all in, and then you pay to tear it all out.
Exactly. And that can cost tens of thousands of pounds.
That is wild.
That is precisely why we're seeing so many companies, even large, mature foreign tech firms, aggressively opting for the service model in Shoreditch. They do not want a £200,000 upfront liability sitting on their balance sheet. They want a predictable, flat monthly fee that they can just turn off if the market crashes.
It's literally the Netflix invocation of commercial real estate. You aren't buying the DVD player and the disc. You're just subscribing to the stream.
That is the perfect analogy. And just like any subscription service, there are different tiers. The Q1 rental guides basically categorize the Shoreditch market into 3 distinct buckets: the scrappy tier, the boutique tier, and the trophy tier.
Let's look at the scrappy tier first. I'm assuming this is for the pre-seed startup where everyone is still eating instant ramen.
Pretty much. Tier 1 is purely functional. You get a solid roof, a desk, and decent Wi-Fi. It's often located slightly on the fringes of Shoreditch, maybe pushing up towards Hackney Road.
And what's the damage there?
You might pay somewhere between £168 to £350 a month per desk. It's affordable. But, and this is a big but, you're probably not bringing a major client there to pitch them. Not unless you want them to actively worry about your solvency.
Please ignore the damn patch in the corner. We're very profitable, I swear.
Exactly. It doesn't project stability. Which brings us to Tier 2, the boutique. This is the absolute heartland of the Shoreditch market.
This is the sweet spot.
Yes. Think exposed brickwork. An on-site barista making proper coffee, curated local art on the walls. Providers like The Brew or House of Creative sit firmly in this tier. It feels like walking into a very cool, successful design agency. This is genuinely where most of the companies looking at Shoreditch want to be.
And then Tier 3.
Tier 3 is the trophy. This is providers like Fora. These are the flagship, glass-fronted locations right on the old street roundabout. You walk into the lobby and it smells like sandalwood and money.
Scented air is always the giveaway.
Always. You have dedicated wellness rooms, quiet reading libraries, high-end concierge services. You pay the £1,500 a month for this tier when you absolutely need to impress institutional investors or poach elite senior talent.
I want to zoom in on the practicality aspect for a second. We mentioned those asset-light models and why they make sense financially. But why are foreign companies specifically targeting Shoreditch using this service model?
Sure.
Is it just the money?
It's money, but it's equally about risk mitigation and speed. Imagine you are a mid-sized U.S. tech firm landing in London for the first time. You don't know the local market at all. You have no idea if your UK team is going to be 5 people or 50 people by next year.
Right.
Do you really want to lock yourself into an ironclad 5-year lease?
Absolutely not. That's a terrifying liability if the expansion fails.
Exactly. With the service providers, take Runway East, for example, your move-in time can literally be 48 hours.
48 hours from saying hello to actively working at a desk.
Yes. You tour the space on Monday, sign a digital license agreement on Tuesday, and your team is logging on to the Wi-Fi on Wednesday morning. Contrast that with a traditional lease, which takes months of agonizing negotiations involving real estate lawyers, architects, and building contractors.
And it solves the scalability issue, too.
Brilliantly. If you land in London with a strike team of 4 people, but your aggressive roadmap says you'll be 50 people by Christmas, a 5-year lease on a small office becomes a prism.
Because you outgrow it in 6 months.
Right. But in a managed or service building, you just ask the community manager for more desks next month, or you seamlessly migrate to a larger private suite down the hall without ever breaking a contract.
It's totally frictionless growth. Let's talk about some of the specific providers that popped up in these 2026 reports. Because we have this list of companies, and they all seem to have a very different specific flavor.
It's a very diverse ecosystem now. Let's start with Canvas offices. Their market positioning is really interesting. They focus heavily on making it a home.
What does that actually mean practically? Does it just mean there's a sofa?
It's about privacy and identity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of standard serviced offices are essentially just glass fishbowls. You sit in a glass box, and every other company walking down the corridor can see your screens and your whiteboard.
Which is terrible if you're dealing with sensitive IP.
Exactly. Canvas offers private, fully branded spaces. You get your own solid front door. You can paint the walls your brand colors, put your massive logo in the reception.
Oh, so it feels like a traditional lease, but with the flexibility of a service deal.
Exactly. It allows a company to build and maintain its own unique internal culture, rather than just being a small guest in a co-working brands building. This is incredibly popular with foreign firms who need a highly credible, permanent-looking London address.
That branding piece is vital. You don't want an investor to visit and think you're just renting a temporary desk.
Right. Then you have House of Creative, which is another major player in Tier 2. They use a completely unique pricing model. They actually charge per room rather than per desk.
Oh, that's interesting. Let's do the math on that. How does per room change the dynamic?
Well, say you rent a room designed for 20 people, and it costs a flat £9,000 a month. If you divide that by 20, you're paying £450 a desk, which is significantly cheaper than the Shoreditch market average of £625.
Right. But the catch is you actually have to fill the room to get that value.
Exactly. If you only have 10 people sitting in that 20-person room, your effective cost is £900 a head. It's highly inefficient.
But if you know you're hiring fast,
then it's brilliant. If you're a funded startup anticipating rapid headcount growth, you lock in the room rate. As you hire those next 10 people over the quarter, your monthly rent does not increase by a single penny. You smoothly grow into the fixed cost.
And looking at their brochure, I see House of Creative heavily features their roof terraces with views of the Gherkin.
Let me tell you, a clear view of the Gherkin from your office terrace is a powerful currency in Shoreditch.
It's the background for every single company LinkedIn post. Thrilled to announce our Series A with the skyline in the back.
It's mandatory. Another interesting provider is The Brew, specifically their Eagle House location.
What's their angle?
They lean heavily into vintage charm. It's not the slick, hyper-modern glass and steel box. It's an historic building. It has architectural character. But their real competitive advantage is contract transparency and incredibly short terms. They offer 2-month minimums.
2 months. That is virtually zero risk.
It is. It's absolutely perfect for a temporary project team flying in, or a startup that just needs a landing pad while they figure out their permanent strategy. Plus, they have this beautiful French-inspired cafe downstairs, which perfectly feeds into that lifestyle integration we talked about earlier.
Then there's Runway East. I kept seeing them mentioned over and over in the user reviews we pulled.
Runway East leans completely into the social community aspect of the office. They are legitimately famous in the tech scene for Cake Wednesdays.
Cake Wednesdays. Is that literally just exactly what it sounds like?
It is exactly what it sounds like. They buy a ton of free, high-quality cake every Wednesday afternoon for the whole building. It sounds trivial, almost silly, but it's a calculated community builder.
Because everyone leaves their desk at the same time.
Yes. They also actively encourage dogs in the office. They run weekly networking events, pitch nights. If you are a young team of 5 people, that built-in social lubrication is incredibly valuable. You're chatting with founders of other companies while waiting in line for a slice of Victoria sponge.
It manufactures that cluster effect serendipity inside the building.
Yeah. And then at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have Fora.
The Tier 3 trophy space.
Right. Fora represents what the industry is calling the hotelification of the office.
Hotelification. I love that term.
Right.
Because looking at this amenities list in their 2026 brochure, it really does read like a pitch for a 5-star boutique hotel, not a place where you go to answer emails.
It really does. And it highlights how much the baseline expectations have shifted by 2026. What we consider standard now used to be a luxury.
So what are the absolute table stakes now? If I'm opening a flex office in Shoreditch today, what must I provide just to survive?
You must have 1 gigabit plus wired internet, flawless Wi-Fi, and 247 building access. The data shows 85% of all buildings now offer round-the-clock access. And you must have a high ratio of acoustically sealed meeting rooms and casual breakout spaces.
Because in a hybrid work model, nobody comes to the office just to type silently at a monitor. They come to collaborate.
Exactly. The office is a meeting facility now. If you don't have those basics, you aren't even in the game. But the differentials, the things that justify the massive price tags, are fascinating.
Let's talk about the pets, because this blew my mind.
Yes. 52% of office buildings in Shoreditch now officially allow pets, primarily dogs.
Over half the buildings? That seems like a logistical nightmare for landlords. But obviously it's necessary.
It's vital. Think about the core demographic of this workforce. Millennials and Gen Z adopted millions of pandemic puppies that are now adult dogs. For this generation of workers, the dog is practically a family member. If a company mandates a return to the office, but they can't bring the dog,
They'll just quit and find a company where they can. It's a massive hiring perk. We offer competitive salary, equity options, and you can bring your Labradoodle to the stand-up meeting.
it genuinely is a deciding factor for talent. Then you have the outdoor space arms race. High-quality roof terraces are now present in 20% of Shoreditch buildings.
Which is prime real estate.
In the summer months, that outdoor space is highly coveted. It's used for Friday evening socials, but also just for daily mental health breaks. Being able to step out of a stressful meeting and physically see the London skyline is a huge, measurable stress reliever.
And what about wellness facilities beyond just the cyclist shower?
We're seeing dedicated quiet zones where no talking or phone calls are allowed, meditation rooms, and sometimes full on-site gyms. But honestly, the most fascinating behavioral insight from the 2026 data is regarding coffee.
Ah, the coffee wars. I saw this chart in the Hubble report.
It is wild. There is a very distinct, measurable generational divide in how office workers spend money on coffee. The data shows that Gen Z and younger millennials spend significantly more on coffee out of the office, over £9 a week on average, compared to Gen X and boomers who spend less than £6.
So the younger generation heavily values their caffeine routine.
But they value the quality of the caffeine. They absolutely refuse to drink instant coffee granules from a plastic tub in a sad kitchen. They want barista-grade, single-origin flat whites with oat milk.
Which costs like 4 or 5 quid a pop on the high street.
Exactly. So for a landlord or a flex space provider, investing in a high-end commercial espresso machine and offering that quality of coffee for free is a relatively small operational cost, but it delivers a massive ROI for tenant morale.
Because it actively saves the younger workers real money. That's maybe 40 or 50 pounds a month they aren't spending at the cafe.
Exactly. And more importantly for the employer, it prevents the classic coffee run exodus at 10 a.m., where half your team disappears down the street for 20 minutes. It keeps the energy inside the building. It is a highly effective retention tool disguised as a beverage.
Okay, so Shoreditch sounds incredible. You've got the free cake, the dogs running around, the gherkin views, the barista coffee, the 48-hour move-in times.
Yeah.
But, and this is a huge, but it also sounds prohibitively expensive. $625 a desk is steep.
It is top of market pricing.
What if I just can't afford that? Say I'm bootstrapping my startup, I don't have VC funding yet, and literally every single penny counts. Where do I go? I still need an office.
This brings us perfectly to the final section of our analysis, the alternatives. Because the gravity of the tech belt has created a massive ripple effect outward. If the E1 Shoreditch postcode is too pricey, you look immediately to the neighbors, Whitechapel and Aldgate.
The budget neighbors.
Exactly. If you look at the Q1 data for Whitechapel or Aldgate, the average flex desk rates are noticeably lower. You're looking at a range of 400 pounds to 650 pounds rather than starting at 525 pounds.
That's a solid chunk of change saved per head.
But here's the secret. The transportation connectivity is actually comparable, and in some ways it's even better, because Whitechapel is a major hub for the Elizabeth Line.
So you get that exact same 45-minute sprint to Heathrow without paying the Shoreditch Premium.
Exactly. And then there's the business rates. That is the real financial kicker for traditional leases. Remember we said Shoreditch business rates are rocketing up by 16% in the new valuation?
Yeah, that massive tax hike.
The forecasted business rate increase in Aldgate is only around 5%, so you are saving significantly on your base rent, Andy. You're dodging a massive spike in property taxes.
That is a seriously compelling financial argument, but obviously there's a trade-off. What do you lose by moving 15 minutes east?
You lose the cool. You trade off the immediate magnetic vibe of Shoreditch. You might not have the same incredible density of independent artisanal coffee shops. You aren't going to have gritty, world-famous street art right outside your lobby doors.
It feels a bit more corporate.
Yes, it definitely feels more city fringe. The architecture leans a bit more towards glass and steel and less towards exposed Victorian brick.
It's more suit and less sneaker.
That's a great way to put it. But for highly cost-conscious firms, it is an incredibly strategic choice. If your team leans slightly older, or if your specific business model doesn't rely heavily on that serendipitous creative cluster effect, then Aldgate is undeniably the smart money play in 2026.
Okay, so bringing this all together,
Yeah.
we have looked at the talent ecosystem and the will gap. We've mapped out the transport links and the Elizabeth Line effect. We've gone through the scary but justifiable costs, the different tiers of flex providers, and the hotelification of amenities. Based on all these sources, what is the final verdict on Shoreditch in 2026?
The synthesis of all this data is simply this. Shoreditch is absolutely not the cheapest option in East London. If you are a CFO looking purely at the bottom line on a spreadsheet, you go to Aldgate or you go even further out. But Shoreditch definitively offers the highest talent ROI.
It pays you back in people.
Yes, it creates a physical workspace where top-tier talent actually wants to be. It effectively combats that post-pandemic will gap and the isolation of pure remote work. If your business model relies on rapid collaboration, creative problem-solving, and attracting the best engineers or designers in Europe, the Shoreditch Premium is worth every penny. You are essentially buying localized energy.
And what's the practical advice? Say, I'm listening to this right now, and I need an office for my team next month. What's the play?
If you are a seed stage startup, look really closely at the tier 2 providers like Canvas or House of Creative. They give you that vital Shoreditch vibe without the staggering trophy price tag. And definitely check the fine print to see if you can leverage those per-room pricing deals to grow your headcount cheaply.
And for the bigger guys.
For scale-ups and foreign landings, embrace the asset-light model. Do not sink 200 grand of your capital into a concrete shell fit-out unless you are absolutely mathematically certain you will be in that exact space for 10 years. Flexibility is your biggest asset right now.
Okay, here is where it gets really interesting for me looking forward. We talked about those business rates rising 16% in Shoreditch, but only 5% in Aldgate. And we know the Elizabeth Line makes travel across that whole area completely seamless. So I have a final provocative thought for you, based on this data.
Go on.
Are we currently witnessing the beginning of what we could call Shoreditch sprawl? Like, will the geographic border of cool naturally drift further east into Whitechapel and Aldgate simply because the tax and rent prices physically push the creatives out?
It's a very real possibility.
Are we going to see East Shoreditch become a massive marketing term in 2028? Or will the sheer concentrated gravity and the premium price of the original tech city always be worth the vibe?
That is genuinely the defining question for the London commercial market over the next 5 years. Gentrification and coolness are always moving targets. Shoreditch has successfully held the crown for a very long time, but eventually, money creates gravity.
Yeah, you price out the very people who made it cool in the first place.
Exactly. As Shoreditch becomes increasingly corporate, highly polished, and expensive, those scrappy, innovative startups might be forced to move east just to survive. It is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch the map shift.
It really is. Well, that is all the time we have for On This Deep Dive. Whether you are currently hunting for a Victorian warehouse with a massive roof terrace, or you're just trying to find a quiet desk near the Elizabeth Line that won't bankrupt you, we hope this evaluation helps you navigate the absolute jungle that is the 2026 office market. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.